I'm John Seacott. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer Magazine podcast. We're available on both YouTube and Spotify. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to stay up to date with what's going on here on the podcast. And of course, we're available all the time at brewermag.com for your brewery business resource needs. And I'd like to introduce a brand new part of the Brewer Magazine and something that we've been doing since 2018. It's been Cider Business Aspects, which you can read about each Wednesday, but having its own platform, ciderbusiness.com. If you are a brewery or a cidery that wants to be able to dig right into the cider stuff, it's going to be available there for you as well. And you can find us on Facebook as well. Okay, we are sponsored by Keg Logistics, keglogistics.com/brewermag, and we thank them for supporting the Brewer Magazine podcast through these past few weeks, months, and hopefully years going ahead. We appreciate you guys. Okay, so it was an interesting thing back, when was that? Late December, January-ish, when a TikTok ban was possibly going to happen, and everyone was kind of freaking out, especially people that were like making money on that platform alone, and how they could like lose their job because they were basically trusting a third party to be able to bring an audience to them. And that really sparked an interesting conversation, which actually I ran into this. It was by a guy at CiderCon, Ben Salisbury, Salisbury Creative Group. We wrote a story both on, now available on ciderbusiness.com and at brewermag.com in the cider business category about why email marketing and not social media is the secret to your cidery's success. And of course, this can translate over into breweries as well. And at the same time, you found out that Dovetail Brewing in Chicago was sort of, kind of, maybe breaking up with social media a little bit. And they didn't exactly stop. They're still posting things on there, just not as much, because they created something called the Schnitt, a newsletter. And maybe newsletters are the future again. I mean, this is something from 30 years ago where email marketing has been around because it's a personal connection. It's a one-on-one. Someone's giving you the email address, you're giving them that information back, and be able to have a stronger connection. Just as much as talking to someone across the bar, you're able to share information that way. So Jenny Pfafflin of Dovetail Brewery sat down and talked a couple weeks ago with us and shared exactly how things are going with the Schnitt. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. And we welcome in Jenny Pfafflin of Dovetail Brewery. Jenny, thanks so much for joining us here on the Brewer Mag podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, let's just start with this big move that you guys have gone into. Dovetail announced earlier this year that you're breaking up with social media in a post, and it was an interesting post, and it really intrigued me. So I kind of wanted to find out more about it. And I'm sure there's a lot of breweries that are like, "What are they doing? Let's talk about this." What sparked that shift to kind of adjust your social media strategy?
Right. And just to clarify, the post says we're breaking up with social media, kinda. Like we're not completely abandoning social media. So the reason that I decided like it was time for us to kind of shift our communication strategy towards our audience was, it was probably around the fall that I started to see a shift in the way that we were engaging with the people that, take the time to follow Dovetail. On multiple platforms. We're talking Twitter/X, we're talking Instagram, we're talking Facebook. And there was a few reasons that I think we started to see this shift in like engagement. Like the engagement was going down a lot, almost to the point where there was nothing on X/Twitter. Was that I think a lot of it had to do with people just like there was a presidential election. There was I feel like there's like this distrust. You log into these social media sites now and you're your feed or what you see when you log in is not necessarily, how you crafted your, I guess your own algorithm. So, and that's because, there's power and money. So people are paying for these posts to show up on your page. And it was just, I don't know, it just didn't feel like a very good place anymore to go and connect with the community. And, there was definitely changes in the way that the algorithm was working, as I mentioned. So you're constantly fighting these algorithms and what works and what doesn't work, and what will get, what gets your post in front of the people that were, engaged enough in the first place to hit that follow button. So what I noticed too is there was a new metric that Instagram introduced. I want to say maybe it was midway through 2024, where it was just views, right? So anybody can see the insights to their page or to their post. You click on insights and it says views, and views is very simply how many times did it show up in the feed and how many people saw it. Yeah. And consistently, even though we have 20,000 plus people following us on Instagram, we were barely hitting 1,500, 2,000 views. So like 10,000 or 10% of the people that followed us who hit that follow button, we're seeing our posts. And often what I would hear sometimes is we would have a really big, cool event, and taproom regulars would come in, and maybe they hadn't been in the tap room in a while because, we do a lot of internal marketing posters, et cetera, promoting our events. But they'd be like, I didn't hear about that. I was like, okay. So that was kind of frustrating as well, because I was like, we posted it to social media. We put it, we diligently made a calendar invite on Facebook. We did all these things that I thought we were doing right. But they weren't seeing it. And the thing about social media too is it's very ephemeral. So you make a post and it's immediately pushed, down to the bottom.
Right.
So it's not a way to unless you're thinking about it, I'm going to go to Dovetail's Instagram and look at their entire grid. So I don't know. There was just this change. There was this change in the way that I feel like our audience was engaging with social media. And I just want to reiterate, this strategy is not a one size fits all strategy. If social media is a helpful tool and you're reaching the people that you need to reach through social media, by all means, this isn't I enjoy using social media. I follow certain people on social media. I follow certain businesses on social media. This is not an indictment on people that use social media. I think there was maybe some Dovetail's being a little snobby about, using social media. No, that's not it at all. And also we're still using social media. We're just kind of reinvesting in the way that we communicate to our audience. And we feel like reinvesting that time in a newsletter makes sense. And there's it wasn't something that we took lightly. I wrote down 10 reasons why we stepped back from social media and decided to reinvest in this newsletter that we're going to call the Schnitt. We're calling the Schnitt. Yep. The Schnitt is if you're unfamiliar with it, it's a style of service. It's at the end of the night, you're maybe out with your buddies, and they're maybe half beer behind you, and you're about to wrap things up, but you see, oh, okay, they have a half beer. So you when you come to the Dovetail tap room, you might hear somebody say, "Oh, can I have a Schnitt? Can I have a Schnitt of that?" And you just get a little pour, and that tides you over, so your friends can catch up, and you can all end the night together. Nice. So the Schnitt, we named it the Schnitt because it's just a quick snapshot of what's happening around Dovetail in our tap room and our community. So yeah, that's kind of like the rambling answer as to why. Like it just started to feel icky. I guess
Yeah.
that's like the vibes weren't there for us as far as social media. And we've never done paid advertising on social media. Like that's the other thing too, is like, we're a all things considered, we're still a small brewery.
Yeah.
So the budget really, we have to be very mindful about the budget. So like we boosted posts for big events before, but for the most part, it goes back to like, yeah, if you want to be in that feed, you're paying for it, which makes
Yeah.
sense. These platforms, they're running businesses. Like
Yeah.
we can't compete with that. We also like, there's now another thing to compete with is all this AI generated content as well, which also just makes me feel very icky. But you're fighting the algorithm, and people are turning to AI content because it optimizes for keywords and whatnot. And is that a strategy to push your content into the people that follow you's timelines? Maybe, I don't know.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like where we ended up, and why we decided to refocus into direct email communication.
Sure. And like, you were talking about it, the fact that you now control who's seeing this in a way. It's not a
Mhm.
third party. You're not using
Mhm.
a third party like a platform. It was an interesting talk because I think we had talked about this before I went to Chicago to for the craft or the CiderCon for the cideries. And Ben Salisbury actually talked exactly about this and how email marketing is the a future, even though it's been around for a long time. It's the
Yep.
future for businesses to be able to connect, because here's the interesting thing: you don't own your followers, but if you have an email, you own the follower. It's like direct
Ding,
communication.
ding, 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 ding. Exactly it. Because here's the other thing that was so what it happened in January that really made me decide like, yeah, we're gonna kind of step back from social media was TikTok, right? We're not on
Yep.
TikTok. We're not a tick. We don't use TikTok, but TikTok was nearly banned in the United States, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what happens if that TikTok ban goes through? Like you ought to, now you've lost your followers.
Yep.
Like you can't take those followers along with you. Whereas with direct email marketing, if for whatever reason our email provider, our provider goes under, or does something that we're like, we want to distance ourselves from, um, we can take those email addresses with us to another provider. And like you said, like, yeah, email has been around forever, but it's also the future. Like email has not, like, it is proven to be something that's always going to be there. Everybody has an email, or almost everybody has an email address, right? And that brings me to my next point was, when we did announce that we were moving to focus more on email marketing, we got a few comments was, I don't give my email out. I don't give my email out. And I was like, okay, so you don't give your email out, but here you are posting on Meta. And Meta knows everything about you. Meta knows who your friends are. Meta knows how old you are. Meta knows, maybe what gender you identify with. Meta knows where you go to work. Meta knows where you hang out. Meta knows what you're purchasing. Meta knows what you looked at, even like thinking about purchasing. When I ask for your email, when I say, hey, come on and sign up for the Schnitt, I just want, like, I don't care what your name is. You can give me an email address that's beerfan, 12345
Yep.
at gmail.com. That's all I know about you. That's all I know
Mhm.
about you. Anything else that you would like to provide, maybe you want to type in a zip code, that would be helpful. I don't need it though. I don't need to know your name. I don't need to know how old you are. I don't need to know, you know. So I think there's also an ethical part of this as well. Again, who owns these social media platforms is becoming increasingly more important to people,
Yep.
and how they use social media. And not only that, one thing that I don't think people realize is email marketing is highly regulated. So it is something that,
Yep.
there's not regulation under these social media platforms, but for email marketing, it is regulated. So there are spam laws in this country. There are stronger spam laws in Canada. There are very strong spam laws in the EU. So once you say like, all right, I'm done with Dovetail, I'm going to unsubscribe, I cannot contact you ever again. So in a way, the consumer is more protected under email marketing than social media marketing. So that was another reason that we decided to kind of veer that way.
Yeah. Well, let's get into what the Schnitt is. What's the Schnitt? How do you guys make it kind of something of your own, and maybe stand out a little bit compared to, I mean, we do get a lot of email. There is a lot of junk email. How do you guys make sure that you don't just look like another piece of junk mail floating into someone's inbox?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's going to be something that I continue to figure out. For us, I think we, as a brewery, have a very distinct story to tell. Like we do everything. Our tagline is "We brew like monks, minus the vows." And what that means is, like, if you're not familiar with Dovetail, we do all continental European styles, and we use traditional methods. So there's a lot of stories to tell there. And for me, like, as a older millennial, like for me, I grew up in the time of Metafilter and Reddit and blogs and things like that, where you could click around, right? You kind of were able to get into these little rabbit holes. And for me, that's infinitely more enjoyable than going on the social media and just watching a 30-second video. Like I want to know more. How do I get deeper into that? Because another thing about these social media sites is, like, they are designed to keep you on that site. They want to keep you in there. So for me, it's like, I hope that people, when they get the Schnitt, like, see, like, I get into, like, I am giving you little leads to get into your own rabbit hole. Like, there are some, like, amazing, like, old documents we'll link to when we're telling a story, maybe about our Grodziski, or we're doing a Kolsch service coming up this weekend, and, like, what the heck is a traditional Kolsch service? Well, there's a wealth of information out there. So, linking to several videos that go deeper into the culture of Kolsch service. Like, okay, I know Kolsch service is, kind of like Brazilian steakhouse style service, but beyond that, like, if you can't get to Köln, you don't realize, like, there's so much more to the culture. Like, your servers have this kind of personality that comes across, and there's videos about that online, and sometimes they're in German, but I'll do the work for people to, like, link them to these rabbit holes that I hope they get into. Like, they go beyond scrolling, the doom scrolling. Like, it's like, all right, I see this video and I move on. Whereas I hope, you can open up your email at any time and have a moment to, like, really sit down and think about it without any distractions, because there is a ton of distraction on social media, and that's kind of the hope. But learning, continuing to figure out what people are engaged with, what gets people to open up the email. I hope to do more, like, kind of treat it like it's and I think to a certain point you have to treat social media content like this as well, but it's editorial, right? So you go in with a plan, and it's very you have a point of view when you go in and you plan out your newsletter. And for us, it's like, how do we connect the dots between maybe our obsession as a brewery, and really kind of showcase that, and like, how did we get here? How did we get to become a brewery that is focused on traditional methods, but also traditional service styles? So there's a ton of ideas that are floating around in my head, and it's going to be a process to kind of get there. I hope that sets us apart from some newsletters. That's just, I want to go beyond like, here's our new release, and here's our event, which are obviously very useful things to put in your newsletter. But another thing we do is, like I said, like, I want to connect to the community. So like, often we'll the end of the Schnit ends with Schnitbits, which is like, here are things that are interesting to us. Like, here's an article that's maybe not even related to what we're doing as a brewery, but hey, it was interesting to us. Or one of our production members, opened up for Jack White. His band opened up for Jack White the other night, so that was really fun to like put into the Schnit, and just little things like that. So that's kind of like where I'm at with the newsletter, and like kind of treating it like, in a way, a return to print media. And that's another thing that's been really interesting is, maybe you've seen it as well. I feel like there's like this uptick in like zine culture. Mm-hmm. So there's like, I think it's so cool. And treating it like a zine in a way.
Cool. And you kind of mentioned it like this. It's like, there's obviously the 80-20 rule that a lot of people talk about. But I sat into a seminar one time with Dave Seacott from Batch Brewing, and he talked about more 60-20-20, where it's like, promote others, promote yourself a little, those are the 20s. And then, just promote the community, promote the, like you said, information, not just a new release, here it is, we have this event going on, ways to make you money, but actually like connecting to the community. And it seems like that you have like a planned focus on that, which is really important. Like you said, that makes it stand apart as well.
Yeah. That's the hope. Yeah. So there's I think it's going to be a process, like, that's going to take a few months, even like, I'm invested in this, and I'm, in taking the time to really make it make sense, which I think a lot of social media, I obviously I'm in a unique position where, again, every brewery is different. For me, I'm the one person marketing department. So that means I am the one who, does all the does all the graphic design. I do all the, I do all the social media. I do the newsletter. But I'm also like, I brew. So it's like, I have a lot of things going on. And it's just like, for me, I wasn't giving it enough time. And it was just like, all right, let's just post something. Let's just get something up there to post. Again, you're competing with doom scrolling, you're competing with algorithms, you're competing with AI generated content. Like, I would rather put my time into, like I said, we're just reinvesting more time into something that I think makes the most sense for our audience. And we know who likes to come into the tap room and who likes to enjoy Dovetail beer. And I feel like it's people who, who would prefer to open an email rather than, doom scroll.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. So how's your social media strategy changed then? Because you guys, like you said, you didn't break up. You're like breaking up kind of. How has that changed what you do?
So I another, like, I think again, I'm sure other people are doing this. I'm not reinventing the wheel in any way, but for me to put more time into investing in our newsletter, I'm able to take that that time, that content, and split it up into more thoughtful social media posts, or more, for me, for every time we have a big event, I'll do a social media post for that. Or, another thing that I'm doing is, we talked about, like, it's very ephemeral, social media. So you're constantly, like, the timeline is constantly refreshing. So what I've utilized more are the pinned posts on Instagram. So what I'll do at the beginning of the month is I'll do all of our pop-ups and I'll pin it up there. So if you go to if for whatever reason Dovetail pops into your mind and you're like, what's Dovetail up to? You can see, our calendar of events or pop-ups there. So I've really kind of utilized that. I'm not posting on X anymore. People were like, come on over to Blue Sky. And so, like, I only started a Blue Sky account because I just, we got a squat on the name in case somebody takes the Dovetail handle. But, as I was doing this, I was like, what? Why am I doing this? Like, this is infinite. Like, going back to the previous part, like, you can't take those customers with you. Like, we could be like, yeah, we're going to Blue Sky. But it's like, all right, so I'm going to be just doing this for eternity, is like, just, once a new social media platform, comes up, and once one dies, like, so I was like, we're not on Blue Sky. We're not on TikTok. I've decided to, for Facebook, I think the event feature is pretty useful. So we'll put our events there. But other than that, it's like more so focused on Instagram. And I think that's also because that's where our partners find value. And that would be like our pop-ups. So, like, on the weekends, we have chefs come in. We don't have a kitchen, so we have chefs come in and pop up. And for that, like, I feel like that community and the people that follow that community are invested in Instagram. So what we've done is, collaborative posts, like, I'm happy to say, like, yeah, I'm happy to share, a post with our followers. So a lot more collaborative posts. I think that's very helpful for both or how many entities might be on this collaborative post. So we're not abandoning social media, because it is still an important tool for certain types of businesses, especially these pop-up businesses. So that's changed. I think it's just more like taking the pieces of the Schnitt, and then I can translate that into a more thoughtful social media presence. And so if you're not following us, or if you're not part of our mailing list, you at least know that Dovetail is not dead, because there are, it's like not an abandoned social media account. Because, that was another comment, like, that came up, was like, well, if I go to a social media account and I don't see any posts, I just assume they're out of business or something like that. So I made it very clear, like, even on our abandoned social media posts or social media platforms, that, we're very much still alive, and, come on over and subscribe to the Schnitt to really get into what we're up to.
Yeah. And obviously you kind of touched on some of that customer response. Are you seeing the uptick in, the number of subscriptions? Was it an immediate surge, or are you watching?
It was an immediate surge. Like, I think we increased our the number of people that were signed up to our newsletter by 20% after that announcement, which was awesome. But then when we also sent out the first email was, I started it out with, hey, you might be here because you heard we're kind of breaking up with social media, but just want to let you know, like, there's a real person behind, I think that's also a thing. Like, there's a disconnect with social media. I don't think people think about the people behind social media. Like, you know, I'm sensitive. Sometimes like a rude comment would come through and like it would ruin my day, and that's just a me problem. But it's just like, you know, there's real people behind these accounts. Like, so sometimes I feel like there's a disconnect on social media as well. So I just, you know, I started out this newsletter with an editor's note, like, hey, I'm a real person. So if you ever want to like reach out, please, you know, I will answer. I am the person on the other side of this keyboard. And I think we got like over 100 or I got like over 100 email replies being like,
Wow.
you know what, thank you. You know what, I've been thinking about this too. I've also stepped back from social media, and you know, the only time I do like log in or look at social media was because, yeah, I want to know what my favorite breweries or my favorite businesses or restaurants are up to. And that was definitely, that was reassurance that we were doing the right thing with kind of reinvesting in the Schnitt. Was like, yeah, what I was feeling, those vibes being off late last year, like, yeah, people are feeling it. People are feeling it. So it was very nice to hear from people that said like, yeah, this is something that I'm interested in, and you know, I can't wait to see what's coming up.
Sure. Now, it obviously there's got to be an ROI somewhere in there to stay in business. And have you, obviously you're only about 4 months into this, but have you seen a change in whether it's taproom traffic or event attendance, people saying, you know, like you said, people commenting on that, online things, you know, that have increased, or maybe, you know, the clicks? How's your clicks? You know, like, have you seen any change in traffic in any way?
Yeah, the clicks are good. Like, so our newsletter, I think, you know, there's very robust data that you can get from your email platform. So, and it'll compare it against, you know, other similar industries. Yep. So since I've started the newsletter in earnest, like probably about a year ago, and it wasn't as consistent as it is now. I've noticed that we get probably about 30% more engagement than our peers, which is great. So we have a higher rate of open, and that has increased over the last 4 months, which again is also great. And I think that has to do with consistency as well. So we're publishing our Schnitt every 2 weeks. Like it's a Friday every 2 weeks. And I've seen like better traffic to our website. So I also in the Schnitt make it very clear, like, here's our event calendar, here's what beers are on tap, here's, you know, what else is going on at the brewery. So that's been great. Again, like, you can't necessarily do that out of social media because they want to keep you in that. So like, unless you're constantly asking people to go to a link tree, then to click on your, on an event calendar, there's too many, there's like, you know, people want simplicity. They just want to boop. So if you got to do 2 boops, you might lose your audience. So I feel like that's been an improvement. I wish I could say it's improved taproom traffic, but we're just coming out of a Chicago winter. So, but it's something that I'm going to definitely keep my eye on throughout the year. And it is a metric that I will be using to see what's working and what's not working.
Awesome. And are there anything else that you're thinking of digging into? Podcasting, you already talked about, blogging content that you're kind of doing with the editorial type stuff, or any other thing like that. I mean, what's the future for the Schnitt and just communication with consumers?
Like, it's kind of like, oh, okay, another podcast. But we thought it would be really funny. Like, I don't know, we're yappers. Like this, the brewery itself, we like to yap. So we thought of, like, again, a Schnitt. It would be a Schnitt podcast. It would be no longer than like 10 to 15 minutes, and that's it. Taking on like a process or things, again, a new recipe perhaps, or even an old recipe, because we want to make sure that people aren't, aren't just involved are engaged with the shiny new things that might be coming out at the brewery, but really showcasing, we're almost 10 years old now, the brewery itself, and these are our core beers that have kept the brewery around for 10 years. And and why is that, and what do we do to, what are the processes, what are the ingredients? So I think that would be a lot of fun as well, to do like a little Schnit podcast. So that's definitely been on something that I have kind of put in my plan for the future. And as far as that goes, I think I would love to do more video, but I'm not a videographer. And I think that's the other, that's a point that I didn't really get into in our discussion, was social media isn't just putting up a post, I think to be a really effective communicator, it takes a team. Like, I'm not an expert at videography. I'm not an expert at photography. I'm a pretty decent graphic designer. I'm a pretty decent, writer, but you could get like a really top team together that everybody has that expertise, right? And then you have your the project manager, the person who is, who has the strategy and really like the editor, the editor, like the person who's thinking about the editorial. And I think, Dovetail just being the size it is, we just, we can't do that. And you see, there's really top-notch social media marketing from larger breweries that are able to, really invest in a team that has that, or, even freelancers or whatnot, that has that expertise. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. I would love to, expand our team in the future, but right now it's, there's probably only about 35 of us that work at Dovetail, so we're still quite small. And that's not to say in the future, like, hey, if I get somebody on my team that's really talented and that's their job is videography, photography, etc. Like, that's not to say we won't have like a YouTube channel one day. Kind of like fleshing it out and seeing where it goes.
Awesome. Well, for anyone that's, listening, most obviously people that are listening and watching this are brewery professionals and some marketing people, some owners. If they want to be able to see what you guys are doing, what's the easiest way to get signed up for the Schnit and see exactly what's going on?
Yeah, go to our website, dovetailbrewery.com. You should see a pop-up, or if you just go, it's on the footer of each page, sign up for our newsletter. So that's the easiest way.
Awesome. Well, I always like finishing up the podcast with some fun questions, get to know you a little bit, not rapid fire, but we can talk about them a little bit. You ready?
Okay.
All right, let's do. And I know this one you're going to have fun with, since exactly what you guys do as a brewery. What's the most underrated beer style and why?
Ooh, all right. This is going to be a very Dovetail answer, but Rauch beer. I think, but I think Rauch beer is having a moment. I think it's having a moment. So if, for people that are unfamiliar with Dovetail, when the brewery opened up in 2016, we opened up with 3 beers, a house lager done in the Franconian style, a Hefeweizen, and a Rauch beer. And at that time, I was working in the tap room, and it'd be so funny to, like, when people came in and they're like, so this is what you got. And we're like, yeah. So we have 3 beers. And it was like that for a few months. And one of those beers was Rauch beer, as I mentioned. So, a Franconian style lager that uses smoked malt. I guess you could say it's an acquired taste. But I do really believe if you give it a chance, by the second one, you might be a convert to the style. I also think it's obviously very food friendly. It's fun to pair with meals, and it's just it's also a conversation starter for a lot of people. It might be their first time having a smoked beer. So it gets a lot of people talking in the tap room, and it's always fun to hear what people think about Rauch beer. So I'm gonna say, yeah, that's my answer. Rauch beer.
Nice. Well, let's just personal preference. This one, and obviously Chicago is known for its pizza. And a lot of people talk about deep dish, but we know tavern style is a thing as well. But let's talk the crust, the sauce, the cheese, or the toppings. What makes a good pizza in your mind?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, this might be controversial. The cheese for sure. So if you go to St. Louis, no.
I was just gonna say, unless you're in St. Louis.
No Provel, please. But also, I also went to school in Wisconsin, so dairy products are just definitely important to me. Also, I prefer a sauce that's not too sweet. I also think a good sausage, if you are a meat eater, a great sausage with a little bit of enough fennel in there to come through and cut through the sauce and the cheese and the richness of it. And then I know there's a lot of people are like, well, deep dish sucks. If you eat deep dish, you're a tourist. I don't think that's the case. I don't think there is a time and a place for deep dish. And the best time is, again, if you live in Chicago, you kind of have to deal with some of these really long, dark nights, cold nights, snowy nights, and there's nothing cozier than a deep slice of deep dish pizza.
Right on. All right, last one. Which brewery do you wish you opened, or for which beer brand do you wish you created?
Wow. Oh man. There's so many. This
either comes down to right now or what got you into it. I think those are it ends up being the two answers for people. It's like, what got you to what you're doing, or what do you love right now? And you're like, damn it, we could have done that.
Wow. Oh goodness. Like this is really good. This is kind of a stumper for me because there's so many things that are coming to mind right now. And like for me, like what got me into craft beer was New Glarus.
Deb, we love Deb.
New Glarus was my aha moment for sure. And I think there's a lot of New Glarus in Dovetail. Again, their commitment also to traditional methods. But like for me, when I was going to school in Madison, like my first, up until then, I was like an Amstel Light girly. It wasn't until I was living near this liquor store called the Cork and Bottle, and went there one time I think it was around Thanksgiving, with my roommate, and everybody had gone home for break, and we stayed behind, and we decided we're going to make ourselves a special meal. So let's go to the liquor store and get ourselves a fancy bottle of wine, and for 21-year-old kids. But the guy behind the counter was like, "Hey, what are you guys up to?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're making a holiday meal, and we just want something nice to pair with it." He was like, "Well, have you tried New Glarus Belgian Red?" And we were like, "No." And it looked like a wine bottle, and I've never seen that before in a beer. It had like the wax coating, which I was like, "Ooh, that's fancy." And it was probably the first, Belgian style beer that I had. It was probably the first, probably the first fruited style I had. But what was so clever is like, that was my aha moment for like how you could pair beer and food as well, because he essentially was handing over like the beer version of the can of cranberries to us. And it just really kind of like blew my young mind. And then when I moved to Chicago, I ended up very close to the Hop Leaf, living across the street from the Hop Leaf. So again, as a young 20-something, like I was a kid in the candy store with all those Belgian styles. So for me, like I have so much admiration for New Glarus, and really their ethos and what they do. I think, is a big reason why Dovetail is Dovetail today.
Awesome. Yeah, Dan and Deb, we love them. They've been on our cover. We've loved talking to them. And like you said, just it's one of those that has probably inspired so many people, or they didn't, because it's so, like, if you're in the Midwest, not a lot of West Coast brewers are going to be talking about New Glarus, I'm sure, but unless, they're very fine-tuned or from the area. But New Glarus has inspired so many people to do what they're doing right now. So point on, spot on. I'm glad. And that's very cool. Well, thanks so much for, letting us know a little bit about yourself, and also just, this adventure you guys are having. And I think it'll be interesting to see, social media wise, what people are doing going forward, because it's funny how, like, things just start popping up like this, like between you guys and then me sitting in a seminar that all of a sudden is being told, go to email marketing. And we're very big as a magazine with email marketing as well. Because like you said, social media, man, like, we have 30,000 followers, and it's depressing sometimes to watch, the count come in after a week, and like, wait, no one has seen this. And like, why? I don't want to have to spend, we already have to spend money on other things. Why do we have to add this budget to be able to just be seen from people that want to follow us? So best of luck here.
Yeah. And like, I just want to say, if there's any like marketing or even, beyond marketing people that are going to see this podcast, I'm always interested to hear what's working and what's not working with other breweries. And, feel free to reach out to me, jp@dovetailbrewery.com. Would love to continue this conversation with my peers. And maybe we'll find something that works.
Well, awesome. Jenny, thanks so much for talking with us.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you soon.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.